There's a lot going on in this pivotal text, and key to it all is liminality, the in-betweenness of this moment in the early Jesus movement. It was a movement between the growth of the church among the Jews and the growth of the movement among the Gentiles in Antioch. And there was even an in-betweenness in Barnabas's own body. If you remember back in chapter 4, when Barnabas was introduced as having sold a field and given the money to the disciples for the movement, Barnabas was described as a Levite, a Jew, a religious insider to that movement, but from Cyprus, territory of Gentiles. There's an in-betweenness, a liminality even in Barnabas's identity. And in this in-betweenness and this liminality is where the Spirit is moving in creative ways in the book of Acts. We see it over and over again, and it is so clear here in this text, and so clear here in our very own lives in the moment of in-betweenness and liminality in which we exist in this moment of global pandemic. Willie Jennings, who we've been talking about for some time now, notes that there's a lesson here for Gentile Christians that we often miss. Jennings says, "Why have Gentile Christians forgotten their radical beginnings? Because it was too much for us to take in. Not only are we those outside of Israel who were never fully imagined to be brought in, but we grew in the cosmopolitan places of diaspora through the in-between pedagogy of an in-between Barnabas and an ex-killer Paul." Think about those radical origins for a moment and the particularity of the in-betweenness as it operates in this book here and throughout. And then at the end of this text this morning in chapter 11, there is a particular mission that is concretized for the apostles. When the prophet Agabus arrives with a word of future famine. And this gave the early Christians, as they were being called at this point, not a term of endearment, actually a term of derision, but this gave the early Christians, this Jesus movement growing in the in-between spaces, a particularity to their mission in that very moment, in that very historical situation. And that movement, of course, was leading them toward the mission of famine relief, of relief for those suffering the particularity of that famine in that historical time and place. And it is an invitation to us today to be very discerning about how the Spirit is moving in our in-between time and about how the particularity of our time and place, this time of global pandemic, when just this morning, and probably even more by the time you're seeing this video, but this morning when I'm making the video, news came in that there are now over 22 million people in the U.S. without jobs because of the pandemic. Where will the call emerge for us as followers of this radical in-betweenness movement of the Spirit in our particular time and place? How will a mission develop for us that addresses the specificity of where we find ourselves in this critical hour?